Hey everybody, welcome back to We Are the Batman. I'm Mike.
And this is Matthew.
So we are popping in real quick with some news that dropped this week. We recorded, obviously this is our Batman Returns breakdown that we're doing as our monthly live action breakdown series, but we wanted to go ahead and tack on this news at the top because it was confirmed this week. The casting of Superman / Clark Kent and Lois Lane for Superman Legacy, written and directed by James Gunn, will be played. Superman will be played by David Corenswet, and Lois Lane will be played by Rachel Brosnahan. Didn't know this was coming, so that's awesome. What are you thinking, Matt?
I mean, I'm moderately indifferent. I don't watch The Wonderful Mrs. Maisel or Magnificent Mrs. Maisel.
Marvel's Mrs. Maisel is one of the best shows. Like you would love it. You honestly, it's so funny. It's so funny.
I think I watched the first episode for the scene because it was the big rage.
Yeah.
And sure. Like my thing is, neither one of these people were on my radar for who should have been these roles.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, look, Gunn's at DC now.
Yeah.
I have yet to, as far as casting's concerned, been like, I don't understand why he did that. Like everything he's put from the main characters in Guardians of the Galaxy all the way through to cameos. And then with the Suicide Squad, as much as I didn't particularly care for that movie, like he nailed the casting on everything. So when it comes to that, and he's directing, this isn't like it's like the Gunn producer.
Yeah. He's writing and directing this movie.
So I am going to default to, you haven't failed me with casting yet. So this must be right. I'm okay.
So I think you're insane because The Marvel's Mrs. Maisel is an incredible show, particularly as somebody who comes from a stand-up background. Obviously the show focuses mostly on like what it's like to be a woman in the 50s, yes, in the entertainment industry, in the world of comedy, which, because there's a lot of stuff with Lenny Bruce and all that. It's an absolutely incredible show. She's a name I have heard floated around actually quite a bit as someone people thought would make a great Lois Lane. There's something about her she's so sassy. She's got a great sass and a great wit to her in The Marvel's Mrs. Maisel. And I know a lot of that comes down to writing as well, but as well as delivery. Like you've got to make it believable. And when I think of like classic Lois Lane, kind of snarky, take no shit, just kind of do her own thing, I really get a lot of that in Marvel's Mrs. Maisel. She's also very good in both Manhattan and in when she was on House of Cards as well. She's had she's done a lot. She's been around since like the early 2000s, and has really kind of paved her own way. I think her casting as Lois Lane is one of those that almost makes too much sense. It's like, yeah, like you'd be kind of nuts not to do it. The one that I don't really have any opinion on is David Corenswet as Clark. I've not seen anything he's been in. I know he was in like an episode of House of Cards, but like it was a small role. I haven't seen anything else he's done, so I really can't. I haven't seen Pearl yet. I've seen X, which is the first one. I haven't seen Pearl, which I've heard is very good, and I've heard he's good in it, but I have not seen him in anything, so I really can't comment on him one way or another. People seem to be, he's got a good look for Superman. I'll say that. He's got a good strong jaw. He's got a good build. He's in that age range we were talking about when we were pitching, our ideas for it. So I really want to see these screen tests, because we also know that Nicholas Hoult screen tested for a Superman, which is a name that had been thrown around a little bit. I like Nicholas Hoult quite a bit, both in the X-Men movies and in The Great, which is the Catherine the Great series on Hulu. His portrayal in that specifically makes me think he could be a good runner-up for like Lex Luthor, because we've seen that happen a few times with a lot of these movies where someone screen tests for one role and gets another. Jason Momoa famously read for BVS's Batman before he got Aquaman.
I mean, look at the most famous villain that we have, I would dare say, in the last 10 to 15 years, Loki.
Yeah.
Tom Hiddleston wanted to be a Thor.
He read for Thor.
There's video footage out there. I don't know if you've ever seen of him doing the Thor fighting.
It's not bad. Cillian Murphy read for Batman Begins and then ended up getting Scarecrow. So, you never know. So it's interesting that on the one hand you pick Rachel Brett and James Gunn has been singing their praises hard, saying that their screen test was absolutely mind blowing. I really hope at some point we get to see that. Because it's become kind of popular in recent years to see some of these screen tests, whether it was the Guardians screen test with Batista, Chris Pratt, the ones for the Batman with Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. I really hope we get this, and also like the Thor ones and the Jason Momoa and Cillian Murphy. I hope we get to see these at some point. It'll probably be after the movie comes out because spoilers, but I'm gonna have to deep dive into this David Corenswet. I keep trying to say his name wrong. David Corenswet, because I don't know him. So I feel kind of bad. I feel bad that I'm not excited for the Superman casting, but I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah. I think my only concern, and it's moderate because it doesn't seem to be that drastic, but like personally, the age gap between Henry Cavill and Amy Adams, I thought was too much. I
don't even know how big that age gap was.
10, 15 years.
Really?
He's only in his late 20s when he gets cast as Superman. Henry Cavill's not that old. Remember, he was a kid when he was in Count of Monte Cristo, which is 15 years ago.
It's only an 8 year. It's an 8-year difference.
Oh, well, it doesn't look like it. And I'm not being mean. I'm not saying Amy Adams looks old. She just looks her age. Okay. You know what I mean? And he looks young. So to me, when I watch Band of Steel, it's like a 25-year-old getting with a 40-year-old, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just a different dynamic, in my opinion, to their relationship.
I never thought they looked that much different in age, but okay. I also have a massive crush on Amy Adams. So,
and I totally get it. Again, not a knock on it at all. Like individually cast, I think Amy Adams and Henry Cavill are perfect. Chemistry,
you didn't like them together, okay?
Yeah. So, I'm defaulting again. Like James Gunn has not done any of that wrong.
Yeah.
Even when you look at some of his previous films, Super was kind of weird, but I think that was the whole point of it. But casting wise, I've never gone, I don't understand why you cast this person. And quite honestly, I'll even give DC props. 70-80% of their casting is spot on.
Yeah, I don't think DC's problem has ever been casting for the most part.
Every so often.
Some see through, but for the most part, I think DC tends to pretty much knock it out of the park more often than they don't with casting.
Yeah. So I'm totally good with this. And it'll be interesting to see. But that's my only thing is I've always pictured them the same age.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see what they look like on camera.
Well, they're only Rachel Brosnahan and David Corenswet are only 3 years apart. So there you go. That'll keep you satiated. So yeah, over the next couple of weeks here, I guess I'm going to have to deep dive into. I know he was on the show called The Politician. I know he's done a couple of movies. But from the looks, I'm looking at his credits right now, and it's a lot of smaller roles. So I'm not sure how big a sample size I'm going to be able to get. But Rachel Brosnahan at least has me excited because to me that's duh. Of course.
Well, and every time I've said it to somebody or showed it to somebody, no one's gone, what? So
yeah, no,
she's doing something right.
Yeah, nobody who knows her work has been like, oh, really? Everyone's just kind of like, yeah, that tracks. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's sorry we don't have more to say on it. Unfortunately, it's just David Corenswet is and he's not an unknown, but he's not a big star with a ton of credits under his belt. But I look forward to exploring more of his career, and maybe by the time we learn more about this movie, we'll have more to say about it. So that's our take on the Superman and Lois Lane casting for Superman Legacy. With that being said, we will transition into our breakdown of Batman Returns. Hey everybody, welcome back to We Are the Batman. I'm Mike.
And this is Matthew.
All right, it is the final Friday of the month of June, and the last Friday of the month means we are doing a Batman breakdown. This is where we take the live-action Batman films in chronological release order and give them a deep dive breakdown as we just go through all of them. And we've got a little bit of serendipity going on with this one because we are doing the final Michael Keaton Batman movie, Batman Returns, in the same month that he has returned as Batman in The Flash. Now, full disclosure, at the time that we are recording this, it is Friday, June 16th. We have not seen The Flash yet. It just came out in the last 24 hours. So we're not going to have anything to say as far as like Michael Keaton's performance in this compared to like in The Flash, because we simply haven't seen it yet. You can go check out our Flash review, which already is up at the time that this is getting posted. So this is going to be strictly focusing on Batman Returns as it is.
And maybe if there's something that is so like, oh wow, we'll add a little thing at the end.
Yeah. If there's something after we see the movie that we're just like, we have to put this in the Batman Returns episode, we'll record it. We'll slap it in there, or we'll jump it in right here, right at this moment. Nothing. Okay. I thought maybe we would magically time travel into the future but anyway. So Batman Returns is the sequel to 1989's Batman, once again directed by Tim Burton. The first movie was such a massive success that a sequel was inevitable. The movie was made for $50 million and it received a box office total of $266.8 million, which in 1992, that's a shitload of money.
Yeah,
for a movie.
Most films never broke, I think, over 200 million.
That was, yeah, and even that was still pretty
That
impressive.
is considered a massive hit.
Yeah, so, a $50 million budget for a comic book movie in 1992 is nuts. So yeah, that's pretty good. Just a little bit of pre-production on this. We'll get into the rest of it later as we go through and talk about it. So because Warner Brothers really had a lot of faith in this Batman franchise, the original Gotham City sets were built over at Pinewood Studios in the UK. They filmed it in London. Warner Brothers purchased them off of Pinewood Studios to have just to have them for as many Batman movies as they could, because it was cheaper to just have the sets and maintain them than try to build new sets altogether.
Yeah,
we'll get into that when we talk about the actual movie, because that actually kind of shocked me a little bit. The original script for this movie was a lot darker. It involved things like machine gun wielding Santa Claus mowing people down. Vicky Vale was going to return. It was going to focus a lot more on her and Bruce's relationship. Catwoman's original costume design was basically bondage gear, and there were scenes written of her just murdering groups of men. And they were originally going to introduce Robin through the Red Triangle Circus Gang in some way. That was part of the original script.
He was cast, and it was Marlon Wayans.
Yeah, what a choice.
Tell me you don't read comics without telling me.
I love Marlon Wayans so much. Absolutely not. Originally, the original plan was to also have a third villain in the movie. It was going to be Penguin, Catwoman, and Riddler, and Robin Williams was considered for the role of Riddler. He would again be considered for the role of Riddler for Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever, but ultimately that role went to Jim Carrey. Robin Williams' name floats around in a lot of Batman casting, and it never seemed, because he was also, when the original plan for the third Dark Knight movie was to have a Hugo Strange thing. It was going to be Robin Williams. That was the original choice. But
my understanding is they use Robin Williams to quote unquote trick Jack Nicholson into taking the Joker.
That's hilarious.
So
So as far as Tim Burton goes with this thing, he originally said that he would only return because they wanted to try to sign him on to return for a sequel before the first movie even came out. He said, I won't do it until I know how the first movie does. He said he would only return if he could maintain full creative control. He considered his first Batman movie his least favorite of his films because he felt he didn't have enough creative control in it. He replaced a lot of the original crew from the first movie with his former collaborators, including the cinematographer, production designer, makeup, and art direction. And then also Burton so famously disliked working with John Peters as producer, which John Peters, if you know that name, is the guy behind a lot of the Superman Lives nonsense drama. The man has a boner for spiders. So John Peters was demoted to executive producer and was effectively barred from the set of the movie. Yeah, John Peters is not a popular guy in Warner Brothers.
Why not?
I know. That's kind of all the big stuff I have as far as pre-production goes. Everything else about this was pretty straightforward. I mean, it was
The only other thing I have is that apparently Keaton got a huge hike in pay.
Oh
to come
yeah,
back.
because the first Batman was his second movie, and his first movie was Mr. Mom.
No, he'd been in several movies by now.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because he was in Night Shift.
The first Batman.
He was in Beetlejuice. He was in.
Oh, you're right.
But nothing serious and nothing big.
He was not a big star. Beetlejuice had been kind of the biggest thing. He was a comedian. He was a comedic actor, and they weren't paid much. He got a nice big pay hike for this movie. But still also not the biggest star in the movie. You've got Michelle. Let's get into the casting of this movie.
Let's roll into that.
Talking about it. So we've talked ad nauseum about Michael Keaton as Batman, especially in our Batman 89 discussion. And I think that as good a job as I think he does in Batman 89, I think he carries that over into this. I don't have any particular notes about his performance, whether it got better or worse in this one. I think it's kind of par for the course. If you're into his Batman from the first one, you're going to be into it in this one. I say that mostly because he's barely in this movie.
Yeah, the big thing I will give him huge props for, and it comes from some background information that they discuss in interviews at the time of the movie, is that him and Michelle Pfeiffer's chemistry is amazing.
You can taste it in the air.
Yeah.
I was watching this movie last night just to have a full refresh on it, and all I could think was, I want to watch these two bone.
Well, and they talk about I guess they had dated before this.
Yeah.
Briefly. I don't know how long or the details. They just said that they were very comfortable, and it shows this that should have been the movie. You didn't need Penguin, Max Shrek, blah blah yakety schmackety. Yeah. This movie should have just been Catwoman and Batman. They're the best parts of the entire film, and it's because of how amazing their chemistry is.
It's I equate it to Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone in The Amazing Spider-Man, who were dating at the time they were making, and so their chemistry as Gwen and Peter on screen was so authentic because they were actually a couple, so they were able to kind of play off each other in that way. And I think Keaton and Pfeiffer's chemistry out of costume in this movie is incredible. In costume as Batman and Catwoman, and I think a lot of this has to do with the writing, it's not there as much. I think you lose a lot of their chemistry when they're in costume, because a lot of my biggest problems with this movie are in the script, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But when they're out of costume, when it's just their first meeting in Shrek's office, or when they're at the party together, that it is I'm make this just make this the movie.
Yeah,
I don't need anything else in this movie. The two of them on screen acting against each other as this kind of femme fatale, it is incredible. And I think a lot of that, again, singing all the praises of Michael Keaton, but a lot of that also goes to Michelle Pfeiffer. Holy cow.
Yeah, she's amazing. Like, and rolling into her, she's the best part of this movie. Like,
I have to confess something, and I'm going to
uh-oh,
make a lot of people angry with this.
do it.
I think Michelle Pfeiffer is a very good Catwoman. I do not think she is the gold standard that everyone makes her out to be. I think that her Selena Kyle is fantastic.
Yes.
I think her Catwoman is fine. But I think a lot of that lends itself to how it's written.
I
Like, I'm
think,
not saying Michelle Pfeiffer is the problem. The way her Catwoman is written, I don't like it's just it's a little off for me, and it just doesn't it doesn't live with me
well,
like
and this is what I'll say. Like, as much as I hate using this word to per se, like her performance as Catwoman is dated as hell.
It's
Like,
very dated.
it is what men wanted a Catwoman to be at that
Yeah.
time, was the over sexualized, over like everybody's pawing at her, over the
Yeah.
top, and the entire movie is over the top. Tim Burton got creative control and he should never have, because
Yeah.
it's over the top with everything. But I think, yes, watching it the last time, I fully, I told you, I am going to confess, I could only get halfway through the movie. I hate this movie, but I had to watch it for a previous podcast a couple of years ago, and I watched it bell to bell, and it was just like, yeah, her, like you're saying, right, her and out of costume, perfect. Her in costume, it's just this weird, overly sexualized thing. But it's also because like that character's not like that anymore. There was a
Yeah.
brief window from like the late 80s to the early 90s when she was in that purple costume that was just the bad girl invasion of comics. Lady Death, Vampirilla, Catwoman, like everything was just super sexualized. So
Yeah.
looking at it now, like had I not experienced this film when it came out and already had a crush on Michelle Pfeiffer before this movie, I'd have been like, huh, watch it. If I had watched it now, I'd have been like what
This is the
is
one
this?
everyone's always losing their mind about?
Like,
Really?
what is
Okay.
she? What is this? Licking her arm like she's
Yeah.
bathing. You're just like, okay, but like, yes, it is all the most fetishized.
Fetishized.
Yeah. So I still will stand by. She's one of the best things in the movie,
Yes.
but that's not saying much considering outside of her and Keaton, everybody in this movie sucks.
Yeah. There's a lot of times with her as Catwoman, and again, this is more story issue, but like her character, by the end of the movie, I didn't fully understand what her character's motivation was, but I 1,000% understand why they picked Michelle Pfeiffer. If you've ever seen the behind the scenes video that got leaked not leaked, but released a couple years ago of her doing the thing where she's whipping the
Heads off
the mannequins, that's all her. She did that in one take.
Yeah.
And she gets done and jump ropes off, and you hear the crew just start applauding because they're like, "Holy shit, she did it!"
Yeah, no, that was released back then because I remember that. Because like I said,
okay,
here's a funny
was a kid.
story.
I was born in '89, so I was 3 years old when it came out.
Here's a funny story for you. One of the ways I think I hooked my wife was we were talking one day on like live Zoom, whatever it was we were using, and she starts. I was doing something, and I think I was wearing sunglasses or something. She's like, "He's a cool rider," and starts singing that song, and I start acting like I'm riding a motorcycle, and she's like, "You know that song? You know that movie?" And I was like, I had the biggest crush on Michelle Pfeiffer when I was a kid. Of course I know that movie. It's Grease 2.
I was a man in the 90s, of course.
Yeah, it was Grease 2. But it was just it's just this constant joke that like 4 or 5 years ago, we had like a last minute, we need costumes, and I bought her a pink jacket and I got a helmet and a jacket. So I was Cool Rider and she was, anyway, all that to say, like, because of Michelle Pfeiffer, that helps.
Yeah.
But you were right. Like, Danny DeVito's a huge star at this time. She's a really big star. She's had a really good run of amazing films up to this point. Some of which I probably shouldn't have watched at my age, but
Here's the thing. Since you brought up Danny DeVito, I want to talk about Danny DeVito's Penguin. I 110% understand why they cast Danny DeVito as to play the Penguin. He is in his prime when this movie is coming out. And when you look at the Penguin on paper, Danny DeVito makes sense. he's trying his damnedest with what he was given in this movie. I think they did not know how to write the Penguin for this movie because if you look at a lot of the pre-production notes, they changed their minds on how to write Penguin a lot.
Yeah.
They could not. It seems like they just simply could not come to a consensus with what to do with Penguin in this movie. You know, the original script pushed hard for the main villain to be Two-Face with Billy D. As we all know, that completely fell through. That's why Billy D's not even in this movie. So as far as the casting of Danny DeVito goes, I get it. And I think he's doing the best with what he got. Because I really like Danny DeVito. But his Penguin is just rough. And you want to talk about dated. The way he treats women in general in this movie, and in particular Catwoman, you could not do this today.
I don't know, dude, who doesn't walk into a room and see a girl, oh, just the pussy I was looking for?
When he said that, I was like, I forgot that line was in this movie. Woo! Because literally the scene before that is him feeling up the intern and putting the button on her boob and groping her.
Yes.
And walking up the stairs and going and talking about like, oh, being mayor is great. There's plenty of people to help and to feel and to grope. And I'm like, oh man. Ooh. Oh, 2023. Yeah. Ooh boy.
Yeah. Well, and this is what I'll say. Like in defense of Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
He 100% understood the assignment and did the assignment he was given.
He did what he was told.
His performance, as freaking stupid as the entirety of everything with Penguin is, he leans hard into it, and I can't blame him. Yeah. You know, dude, sometimes your job as an actor, in my opinion, is to do what the director wants you to do. Yep. Like the director has a story, he is basing it on the script. I said basing for a reason. And your job is to give the director what he wants to tell the story he wants to tell. And if you're a very good actor, you will do what he says. If you're Judd Nelson, you won't. But
yeah, so that's another issue.
His quote about dealing with directors is my favorite quote of all time.
Yeah.
But I think the problem to me is like Catwoman is kind of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Everything to do with the Penguin and Max Schreck is just all the Tim Burton ridiculous.
That is Tim Burton
and
like just vomiting. And I love Tim Burton, but
yeah, it's just crap.
All the things that people don't like about Tim Burton are crystal clear on display in this movie, and you get a lot of that with Penguin and Max Schreck. Speaking of Max Schreck, you can cut him out of this movie. I love Christopher Walken. Again, you get why they pick him to be in this, to play this character, because it's right up his alley. You don't need Max Schreck. You don't need him to be as big a role as he needs to be. The whole thing with him helping Penguin become mayor doesn't make a lot of sense. You can cut all that out of the movie. Christopher Walken's fine. He's Christopher Walken. He is Christopher Walken in every movie that he makes. Christopher Walken plays the same character, and he plays it very well. So I get it. It is what it is.
No, my biggest problem with the character of Max Schreck is the same problem I had with the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There are literally dozens of other characters that are always in the comic that this guy could have been. Mm-hmm. He could have been Carmen Falcone. He could have been, any frickin' of the hundreds of Batman Rogues Gallery characters.
He could have just been Cobblepot.
It could have been Cobblepot.
It could have just been Cobblepot.
So that's where that kind of stuff always gets on my nerves when you create a big character in a movie, and there's so many other characters that could have been that character. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of those, there's literally a comic called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with 15 characters, and you used none of those.
None of them. Yeah. I know.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so
So
the Max Shrek thing, I love the scene between him and Michael Keaton in the boardroom.
it's great. Don't know why it's
Great
there, but it's
scene.
great.
The
We'll get into that in a minute.
one of the funniest things in the whole movie is like, Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up like Batman?
I rolled my eyes. I rolled my eyes so hard. I rolled my eyes so hard at that line. I was like, okay, you're not that dumb. Come on. And then I mean, just the last couple of casting. I mean, Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon doing what we talked about this in the '89. Commissioner Gordon in these four movies
It's worse than this one.
Is a useless character. This is definitely the worst of the Pat Hingle Commissioner Gordons. He's got like 30 seconds of screen time. So I'm not gonna hate on it too much, but he serves the role that Commissioner Gordon is there to serve in these movies. And then, of course, again, we have to mention the wonderful Michael Goff as Alfred.
Yes.
Which I really like his Alfred in this movie. I mean, I like it in all of them, but some of the stuff he gets to do in this movie is the stuff you like to see with Alfred, like helping out with Batman, like being his guy in the chair. When they're both trying to when both Bruce and Selina are trying to run out on each other because of the what's going on with the princess and all that.
Yeah.
And Bruce is like giving Alfred like 4 different things he can tell Selina, and he's like, I'll take care of it. It's fine, go. And Selina comes out, and she's like, maybe you could say something like a dirty limerick, and Alfred's like, one has already come to mind. It's very good.
Yeah.
Bringing him the vichyssoise. What is this? It's cold. It's vichyssoise.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be cold. Which, by the way, vichyssoise, not a great soup. I don't know if you've ever had it.
No,
it's not great. It's great. It's a great concept. It shouldn't be cold. I'm sorry. It's weird that it's cold. It's potatoes and onions and leeks, and then it's blended, and then it's cold. Don't make that cold.
Gazpacho soup. If you've ever watched Red Dwarf, that's all I think about in that scene.
Gazpacho being cold is fine, but vichyssoise should not be cold. I know it's supposed to be, but I don't think it should be, because it's potatoes. Cold potatoes are weird. Anyway, but Alfred, being the guy in the chair in this, I love it's a brief scene, but Alfred saying something about, we can't just take the Batmobile to fix it at any Joe shop. We need to really talk about security and secrecy. And Bruce is like, you want to talk about security? Who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave? I mean, I'm just sitting there working, and I turn around and she's just there. Oh, hi, hello. As he has the Batcave's entrance switch in a fish tank, which I actually got to say, it's not bad. It's actually a pretty good. What's a great place to put the secret button where no one's going to touch it?
Yeah, inside a fish tank.
Inside a fish tank. And I love that he goes to get in the Iron Maiden chute to drop down, and Alfred's like, I'll just take the stairs. And I'm like, wait, how many entrances do you have to you only need one. You want to talk about security, Bruce? You only need one entrance.
Yeah.
Having like 5 entrances to the Batcave just is more likely someone's going to find one. But it's cool. And I do like Alfred saying like, yeah, I'm not getting in that. No, I'll walk.
Yeah, I'll walk.
It gave me Spaceballs vibes of like, do you want a beam? No, I'll just walk, and it's in the next room.
Yeah.
So it was good. So that's kind of where we're at with the casting on this one. I mean, let's get into let's get into like some of the technical stuff, like the sets and the cinematography and the production design. Not the best work.
Yeah.
This felt so claustrophobic. The city feels so small and so tight. I think they only use like 4 or 5 sets in the entire movie, because they just keep going back to that same town square over and over and over again.
Yes.
They go out of their way to not shoot the skyline for some reason, so you never know what time of day it is. It didn't feel like a city. It felt like a set. Every set piece they're on in this movie feels like a set. It doesn't feel like a city. Gotham in the '89 movie felt like a city.
Yeah.
It felt like a real, honest to God, gross, dingy, dirty city that felt huge with scope and scale, that felt like there were thousands of places Batman could hide in the shadows and escape. This one, it seems like it's got 4 streets.
I know.
Seems like it's got 4 roads.
Well, and it's also like the problem with it now. There's kind of a car chase in this. It's not
Kinda.
as big as the car chase in the previous film, but it's
No.
like it just feels, look, we talked about this last time. We all know that car doesn't go very fast. But
No,
when you
it's
don't
going like
even
30 miles an hour
yeah,
tops.
when you don't give it room to even do anything, it
Yeah.
makes it even more it look even less like it has any kind of speed.
Like in the 89 movie, the Batmobile had room to move if it wanted to. This one, it felt so tight. It's like, yeah, why would he ever take the Batmobile into Gotham City? There's no room for this car to move anywhere.
Yeah.
Um,
And it even looks like sets. I think,
it looks and feels like a set. Like it felt, considering this movie had a big budget, it felt cheap.
yeah, which like
You know,
works for something like Beetlejuice because of what it is. It mainly takes place in a house. But when you're
yeah,
dealing with Gotham, I am not surprised because I did not know that he had decided to bring in his whole crew for this movie. I'm
yeah.
not surprised at this new cinematographer because that's cinematography.
It's terrible.
Like that, a
It's
cinematographer can hide it,
atrocious.
obviously, because they hit it in the first one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's
It
just
just
so
it
blah.
felt like they cut corners because they filmed on the same set as the first movie. That was the whole reason they bought the set, was to use it, but they only filmed on like a third of it. It seemed like they didn't use the whole set, and it just felt like they cut corners.
Yeah,
It felt like they rushed and cut corners, and just there's just a lot of laziness in this movie. The way it's shot and designed, in particular, again, they only use 4 sets. There's Wayne Manor, maybe not 4, but there's Wayne Manor. There's the same room in Wayne Manor that we keep seeing in every scene. The same little section of the Bat Cave we see in every scene. That town square.
ad
Max Shrek,
nauseum.
yeah, at nauseum. Max Shrek's office and the Penguin's lair. That's 5. That's 5 locations that we use in this entire movie.
Yeah,
Maybe some other little tiny set pieces here, but those are the 5 main places we go in this entire movie, and we spend almost the entire like 2/3 of the movie in that town square, and the town square looks like trash. I mean, when Penguin goes to the cemetery to visit his parents' gravestone, I'm like, first of all, you crammed the entire city cemetery into an alleyway. That's all the people that are ever going to die. Oh, okay, cool. And it looks so fake. It looked so incredibly fake. And again, this is 92. We've had Star Wars. We've had the first Batman movie. The 66 Batman movie felt more real and authentic and large. And I mean, it was honest to God kind of baffling
yeah,
how bad the sets looked in this movie.
yeah. It's especially because I don't know. Like it is
Yeah.
weird how much worse this movie looks than the first one. Because
Yeah.
usually it's the opposite.
And yeah, oh yeah, I know. Usually you step it up a bit. Like it just, they didn't do any of the dressing down they did with the first movie. Everything feels too clean. Like
Yeah,
like Gotham in 89 felt dirty and dingy, and it was dressed in a certain way that it always felt moist.
yeah,
This one, it feels like a set that they built and just shot and didn't do any lighting treatments, didn't do any weather treatments, didn't do anything, just shot it as is. It's bizarre to me. It's truly bizarre. Like I remember just watching it and thinking to myself, how does this look so cheap? How? I don't get it. It was the Batman 89 was one of the biggest movies ever made at the time. It was a huge success. You have no reason. And again, I think it all just comes down to they gave Tim Burton full creative control. Tim
yeah.
Burton took full creative control and went full Tim Burton on this thing. But even some of the Tim Burton magic is just missing from this movie.
Well, and this is where like I don't know. Look, my favorite Tim Burton movie is Big Fish,
That's
hands
such a
down.
good movie. That's such a good movie.
And it's the least Burton of all of his things. So the man can do
Yeah.
stuff that isn't ridiculously dark. So it is just like so odd. And again, like I'm just gonna go to now, the Penguin's supposed to be a gangster. I don't
Yeah, he's not
know
a gangster in this movie.
why this, and again, this goes to that whole weird thing of like, why was this the decision for this character?
Yeah, you had a million different versions of Penguin you wanted to do for this movie. Why is this the one you landed on?
Yeah, and it just kind of like tilts the entire film because, like, I mean, look, I don't know. I'm not going to get into like. I really would love to know what Michael Keaton thinks of this movie.
I know, I really would, and I'm curious again. As we haven't seen the Flash yet. I'm curious how much of Michael Keaton's Batman is going to be considered canon in the Flash, because we know obviously it's not going to include Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Do
I'm
we?
curious. I would be shocked.
Yeah.
Honest to God, if they've got the free will to ignore anything, it's going to be those two. I know you love Batman Forever, but
No. I just mean with all bets are off with that weird stuff. All the things.
I just mean specifically Michael Keaton's
Yes.
Batman. I wonder if it's also going to disregard Batman Returns and only acknowledge the first Batman. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I mean, he's got the car. Maybe he rebuilt it.
It could be, well, because we see him repairing it even after it
That's true.
goes into missile mode, which I'm not going to lie, it's super cool. I wanted that because they had the toy that came out because this movie came out when I was in, I was 3-4 years old when this came out. So I wanted the Batmobile that split and turned into the missile because I was a kid, and of course I did. My mom wouldn't let me have it. My mom let me watch the '89 Batman ad nauseum. This one she did not let me watch because she went and saw it first and was like, "Yeah, my 3-year-old doesn't need to watch this movie."
Yeah.
Because this movie caught a lot of crap from parents because they wanted to put Happy Meal toys for this movie at McDonald's, and they were like, "This movie should not be watched by children." I mean, Penguin bites a dude's nose off.
Yeah.
Penguin in general alone makes this movie kind of hard for kids. I mean, all the sexual stuff and the gross, violent stuff, and I'm gonna go drown babies in toxic waste. Like, this is not a kids movie. Like,
no,
like by any stretch of the imagination, which doesn't have to be, but for being a Tim Burton movie, being the second one out the gate, woo, what a choice. And to hear that their original scripts were darker than this one, good God.
Well, that's the thing. This is where I get into like it's starting to be that the Joker, like ever since like the mid 70s, late 70s to 80s, like Joker is the one that's psychotically killing people.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that's quite the case with every other villain.
Not really. It's not everyone's MO.
Well, and this
make it everyone's MO.
But this is where I start pushing it back against like there's zero reason for this movie to be this dark.
Yeah.
Because like, look, he's called the Dark Knight because he's the dark one.
Yeah. He's the dark one.
Not everybody else. Like they're all criminals and it's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, like having the Penguin revenge children because of the weird thing that I just and then it's
a lot. It's a lot. But a lot of this goes into the writing, which is at no point like Penguin has too many things going on because he wants to find out who his parents are, but he wants to run for mayor, but he wants to kill all these kids. And I'm like, pick one. Just pick one. Like, have him want to find out who his parents are, and then that makes him want to. I don't know. There's a version of this where Penguin and Catwoman are involved. They both have too much going because Catwoman's motivation changes like 4 times. It starts off with her, saving the girl from the mugger, and it's like, oh, so she's gonna be the kind of like the femme fatale opposite to Batman. Okay, all right, cool. And she goes and robs the store, and I'm like, all right, but why? Why is she robbing the store? Yeah. And then she wants to pair up with Penguin to kill Batman, and I'm like, why? What has he done? He hasn't done anything. I mean, my God, the beginning of this movie is you fangirling over Batman. So you would think that in this point you'd be trying to get in Batman's good. and then you abandon ship on Penguin and are like, well, now my goal is to kill Max Shrek. And I'm like, pick a motivation.
Yeah.
My God. And a lot of this really can boil down to, it felt like they honestly, I think they gave the villain so much to do, because I really don't think they knew what to do with Batman in this movie, because he's missing in a lot of the, there is a 30-minute period of this movie where we don't see Bruce Wayne or Batman.
Yeah.
There's I checked the time. There is an entire 30-minute stretch of this movie where we don't see Michael Keaton in any shape or form, and where he's not even mentioned. It's weird.
Well, and this is where, for me, what was cut out of this movie? Like, is
Yeah.
there things that explain a lot of this? Because you're right. Like, he fights her, so then she decides to go after him because he tried to save her, and then she stabbed him for his effort. Because they fight, and then she falls, he saves her, then she stabs him, then he hits her. And let's get into the part that, like, look, if you're martial arts fighting a girl, totally cool for you to hit her. That's just the breaks.
At that point, she had blown up a store.
Yeah. But to backhand her off a building.
Yeah.
Just one of those moments of like, you saved her the first time you did it, but the next time you're like, all right, well, this is how you are.
And then I guess he throws napalm at her. Because the first thing I thought was he pulls it and he throws it at her, but you don't see what he throws at her. She just like, oh my God, and then falls and he saves her. And I was like, what did he throw at her? Was it water? Are we doing the whole cats hate water thing? And then she says to Penguin later, he throws napalm on my arm. And I'm like, that's what that was? Wait a minute. He had a container of napalm to just throw at somebody? Okay, Batman, we need to have a talk, dude. You shouldn't be throwing napalm at people. But I will also say, this Batman straight up kills a dude in this movie.
He kills a lot of people in this movie.
Like, literally. So I will say, there is a fight sequence in this movie that is awesome. It's when the circus gang is wreaking havoc on the one block of the city we only see in this movie. And he goes down and he is fighting these dudes, and it is an awesome fight sequence. He is being Batman as hell in this sequence. One of the dudes runs up with a bomb. He takes the bomb, sticks the bomb down another dude's pants, and throws him into the sewer, and then it explodes. And I'm like, Batman just killed that guy.
Yeah.
Batman just strapped a bomb to somebody and threw him in a sewer and blew them up.
That's why when people talk about the whole, Snyderverse Batman killing people, I'm like, he's killed people in
Batman killed a lot of people.
Single movie.
Batman killed Joker in the 89 movie. You can tell me all you want. He did. He strapped a gargoyle to Joker's leg and let him fall off a tower. Batman killed Joker in 89.
He minimum killed 20 people in that movie. Minimum.
Yeah. Batman killed Two-Face and Batman Forever.
Kills Batman and Batman Forever. He kills several people in this one.
Yeah. The only one where I think Batman truly does not kill a single person is Batman and Robin. But, I take that back. He killed the Batman franchise in Batman.
There you go. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. It's weird. There's so many decisions made with the script and story in this movie where I'm like, really? All the stuff you guys, from all the pre-production notes, all the billion revisions of this script you guys went through, this is the one you landed on?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, okay. All right. I will say this. Still the best Batmobile. Still the best Batmobile.
It's still cool. Like I can't knock that. Like I don't like the change in the suit.
What change in the suit are you talking about? Because I didn't notice it.
It becomes more robotic and angular in the chest. If you look at the two side by side, his suit becomes more kind of like angular and robotic. Which
see, I guess I didn't notice it that much because he's barely in the goddamn movie, so it's hard. And when we do see him, it's usually close-ups. Like you don't see him.
Yeah,
I don't know. The usage of Batman in this Batman movie is odd.
And this is where, like, reading too into it, I think he didn't want to do it. I don't think
Could
Michael
be.
Keaton wanted to do it, and
I
that he
I think he
priced
did.
himself out of the job, and they took it anyway. And he's like, "Well, crap, but don't let me do the Batman stuff very often."
He probably just didn't like the script, honestly.
Well, I don't think
I
he
don't
liked
know.
the
It's hard to
suit.
say.
Look, I've done a lot of cosplay.
Okay.
Okay, the closest to what he was wearing, I wore one of what's called the RD Replicas Batman suit, which is basically
Yeah.
a motorcycle leather outfit that is motorcycle safe with a cowl and a cape. And granted, I was out in the Houston heat, but even inside, that sucked. I can't imagine being stuck in a rubber version of that for 10 hours a
Yeah.
day.
Okay, so I found you're absolutely right. I found a part. I'm looking through like the IMDb about Keaton and all that. So the original script had Batman like with a lot of very bitter, cynical dialogue. And Keaton's big thing was like, I don't think Keaton's take on it was when Batman's in costume, I don't think he should be doing a whole lot of talking.
Yeah.
Because his whole thing is to be dark and mysterious. And Burton wanted Batman to be a wounded soul type character. Um, and because they had this big disagreement on that, and because it's Michael Keaton and you're not about to recast Michael Keaton, um, they changed the script to be more focused on the villains. I think it's a dumb choice.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
the
I think
wrong choice.
that's the
That's what
wrong.
happens when you give Tim Burton creative control and someone
Yeah.
doesn't walk in and go like, "No, change the script and give us Batman because that's the name of the movie."
Yeah, like when your Batman says, "Hey, I'm not happy with how Batman is written," you don't then write Batman out of his own movie.
Yeah.
You say, "Okay, well if we can't come to a consensus on how this Batman, we need to take another run at the script." You don't just say, "All right, well then we'll barely use Batman." The movie's called Batman Returns. So
Inexplicably.
yeah, which is a weird title because by all stretch of the imagination, he never left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, look, I don't want to seem like I'm beating this movie up too much, but it's just there's a lot of things about it that just really rub me the wrong way, especially coming off of a movie like '89's Batman, which I love as much as I do, which was as big a hit as it was. The decisions to make on Batman Returns, like Tim, you're better than that, man.
This
That's the
is
thing that really bums me out is Tim Burton's better than this.
at the time I don't think he was, and I don't mean it like derogatory per se, but I think the problem is this. You can tell, in my opinion, in the first movie, he's fighting not to let it be a comic book movie.
Right.
They give him creative control, and he does everything in his power to make sure it's not a comic book movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens here is, when you have zero characters behaving the way they do in the comics,
Mhm.
and my thing is this, like, look, I'm not saying verbatim, as much as I don't like the man, I think somebody who we both used to follow and are disgusted by now used to say this thing: you want the core aspects of the character to be translated into the movie out of the comic. They
Mhm.
don't exactly have to look exactly the same. They don't have to be the same, but like
You
there's a
should be able
couple.
to recognize the character by their actions.
Yes, Batman is an awesome fighter,
Yeah.
very intelligent, used a lot of cool gadgets, doesn't kill people.
Yeah.
Like those are core elements of Batman.
We missed some of those in this movie.
Nearly all of them, honestly.
Yeah. He's got cool gadgets. The remote control batarangs cool.
Sure.
I will die on that hill. I will
Okay.
die on the hill. The remote control batarang is cool. Is the shooting of that scene stupid? Absolutely, but the gadget itself is cool. Also, I will say this in the opening fight sequence when the clown dude has Michelle Pfeiffer and Batman shoots the grappling hook, hits the wall, and then pulls the chunk of the wall, hits him. That's one of the most Batman things I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, that is straight out of a comic book.
Yeah.
That is one of the most Batman things I've ever seen. Love it. Do that again. Also, I will say this in that sequence, the way they shoot Michael Keaton in these movies, where the lighting hides his face, but his eyes just pop. I don't know why. I cannot get enough of that. I love that every time they do that.
That's
do
a
that
cool
more.
thing. That's a cool
It's
thing.
a great look. That's straight out of the '89 movie. That is straight out of the '89 movie.
So I think what this is the difference between somebody who gets the comic and somebody who doesn't. Somebody's a fan of the comic and somebody who doesn't. And this is the comparison I'll make. There's two big comic book movies that the first one, they try to keep it as comic book as possible. And the second one, they let the director go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Burton, Batman Returns, the director goes nuts, but because he's not a big fan of the comic, does the most ridiculous things ever.
Mm-hmm.
Hellboy 2, directed
Oh
by
yeah.
Guillermo del Toro. This is somebody who loves the character in the comic and he extends that story. And it's still the same thing, though not based on any of the comics.
Hellboy the Golden Army is so good.
Yeah.
Hellboy the Golden Army is mwah. That
But
is
it's
an excellent movie.
totally him.
It is a crime against humanity. They never got a third movie.
No.
It's
Yeah, it
absolute
is.
crime.
But it was
It
but I
rules.
think that was the thing, is that that's the difference between these two directors.
Yeah.
Del Toro loves Hellboy, loves Mike Mignola, loves Ron Perlman, loves comics, loves the character, loves fantasy, wants to lean into that and do this.
Yeah.
Tim Burton, not so much.
You know, we talk about understanding the assignment. Guillermo del Toro understood the assignment.
Yeah.
Tim Burton did not. Tim Burton did not understand the assignment. And I will push back on the whole Tim Burton might not have known what he was doing, because at this point he has done Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Batman, and Edward Scissorhands. He knows better. He knows better. He straight up he's better than this movie. Edward Scissorhands, I think, is the biggest indicator of that he, as a director, he knows better. And it's just disappointing. It's really disappointing.
I avoided that movie for decades.
What?
And then my wife showed our teenager the movie. I couldn't last 5 minutes.
Oh, get out. Edward Scissorhands rules. That movie's awesome.
Okay.
Funny. Speaking of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I love that Pee-wee plays Cobblepot's dad. And I know it's been talked about in like every podcast known to mankind. But the fact that, but even watching it last night when Paul Rubens pops up as Penguin's dad, I was like, oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. The sad thing, that the fact that my second favorite Tim Burton movie is probably Pee-wee's Big Adventure, just tells you what I think of the man.
Great movie.
I love
Pee-wee's
that
Big
movie.
Adventure is awesome. Are you kidding me? I love Tim Burton. I really do. I love Tim Burton, and it's just this is, and I love his Batman in the first one. This is just such a bummer. But also, this is one of the, when people talk about like giving a director full creative control of a movie, I'm not against the idea, but this is always one of the examples I go to of like it doesn't always work when you give a director full control. Sometimes you get a Hellboy 2 Golden Army. Sometimes you get Batman Returns. Like it doesn't always, it's not always a bad idea. And I understand, especially nowadays, when we hear a lot more about like studio interference, when we talk about like Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, you know, or what happened with Justice League and BVS, like we hear these stories all the time. So in a world where the Snyder Cut exists, I understand the desire to have a director's full vision seen, but you have to be careful, otherwise you wind up with Batman Returns, which is just it's just Tim Burton throwing darts at an idea board and just taking the first idea that he lands on. It's odd choices.
Yeah. So I will say this, ultimately, we want to know what you guys think, but I will say I don't ever want to watch this movie again. Up until well, I was gonna say, up until I watched the podcast, or up until I watched it for the podcast 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd watched this movie since Batman Forever came out.
Like the 66 Batman movie is one I revisit about once a year. The 89 Batman is one I revisit a couple times a year. This is one that, like, there's moments in it I really enjoy, but the movie as a whole frustrates me. So like, I think I'm kind of in the same boat where it's like, unless I have a specific reason to watch this movie again, I'm probably not. To end on a little bit of positivity, I will say the makeup work is excellent. Like the makeup work on Penguin in particular is very good. Those flippers look real. Like that was very good. Michelle Pfeiffer's makeup in this is excellent. I mean, like the makeup work is very good.
Yeah. The direction of everything is wrong, but the fulfillment of that direction is excellent.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The ideas are where the problem is. The execution of those ideas is flawless, but the ideas themselves are just bad. And I in my opinion, it just, the movie frustrates me, and it's a bummer coming off of one of my favorite Batman movies into easily one of my least favorite Batman movies. It's so frustrating, especially because now as we get into, going through doing these movie breakdowns, we're not going to get to a Batman movie I really like for a while. I know the next one is one of your favorites, if not your favorite, and then
It's my third favorite.
and then the one after
Well,
that is nobody's favorite.
no, I
The,
would say,
the one after that is quantifiably the worst Batman movie ever made.
yeah.
It's going to be a bit till we get back to one that we can really sit and say like this is the good things about. It's going to take us until we get to Batman Begins, but it is a bummer that's like, 66 Batman is what it is. It's of its time, but there's a charm to it. There's a love behind it. There's effort made behind it. 89's Batman is the trendsetter for generations. It's what they did with 89's Batman was groundbreaking, and to this day continues to influence Batman filmmaking. This movie's just a mess.
Yeah. I don't understand anybody who likes this over the first one or likes this movie in general. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, like if you have a weird appreciation for it, that's one thing. But like anytime somebody puts this as like one of their top Batman movies, I scratch my head. I'm like, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an odd
Doesn't make
choice.
any sense to me. Unless you just have a thing for Michelle Pfeiffer, and I
Which
totally understand that.
Which I totally respect. I 1,000% respect. And I love Michelle Pfeiffer. And she's very good now that being back in like the Ant-Man movies. She's very good in Quantumania. She does a very good job in that movie. So I know people have mixed thoughts on that movie in general, but she's very good in it, in the part that she plays. Anyway, so Batman Returns, it's a hot mess. There's stuff about it that's really good. There's execution things that are done very well, but from a conceptual standpoint, it's a hot mess. It's all over the place, but you can't deny that it's left its mark on it, because people still to this day talk about Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. They talk about the chemistry between her and Michael Keaton. And as in a few hours from now that we're recording this, I'm going to go see The Flash. Matt's seeing it tomorrow, and that Michael Keaton's legacy of Batman, like like that's thing is like, as much as I kind of dunked on this movie, Michael Keaton's it didn't do anything to hurt Michael Keaton's legacy as Batman.
Yeah, he's good in the movie. Like,
he's good, and like people were still clamoring for, when people found out he was gonna be in The Flash, people freaked.
Yeah,
because it's Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And we love Michael Keaton, and so like as all over the place this movie is, it didn't do anything to tarnish his reputation. This movie didn't hurt anyone's career. Like it's not career hurting, but
yeah, because I think the other thing too is like, this is one of those movies at the time cool, and then as time has gone by, the more you go back to it, the more you're like,
because the next movie Tim Burton does after this is Ed Wood, and Ed Wood rules. Like, Ed Wood's a very good movie. He also goes on to do Mars Attacks after, but Mars Attacks is an acid trip. But this didn't hurt anyone's career by any stretch of the imagination. This movie just kind of if this movie is nothing if not just forgettable.
Yeah,
it's just a forgettable movie.
It is best left in nostalgia.
Yeah,
and if you love it, I'm glad you do. I never particularly cared for it. It is what it is. But people are stoked to see him in The Flash, so we'll see how that goes.
Yes, we will. But we always want to hear what you guys think. So make sure you let us know. How do you feel about Batman Returns, and where does it rank in your Parthenon of Batman movies? And at the time that this episode is released, The Flash has been in theaters for a couple of weeks. So let us know what you thought of Keaton's return as Batman in The Flash as well. You can do that by heading on over to Twitter, Hit us up on Twitter at We Are the Batman. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mike Shea.
You can find me at Mr. J Ninja.
That is going to do it for this week's episode of We Are the Batman and this month's Batman Breakdown. We will see you again next week with another new episode. Same bat time, same bat podcast channel.
Bye-bye.